Hi, we'd like to welcome you to another in a series of webinars designed for departments of transportation. We certainly appreciate everyone for being on this webinar today under these unusual and difficult circumstances. I hope all of your agencies are faring okay and that we all can get back to normal as quickly as possible. I'm Terry Bills, the Transportation Industry Manager here at Esri, and today I'm joined by a fairly large contingent of colleagues from Esri. We have Stacia Taggart, Matthew Erbs, Julia Leverman, Peyton Samuels, Cameron Amrin, and Marcus Infanti, all from our Transportation Professional Services team. So today we're particularly pleased to present a few of the applications we've designed and configured for several of the state DOTs as part of their systems of engagement. And while we'll briefly give you a high-level overview of what a system of engagement is designed to do, the main emphasis today is really on the variety of applications which various DOTs have identified as a way of empowering large number of their employees. And I think you'll see some very creative applications which are designed to support the daily workflows of their respective business units at their DOTs. So I'd like to point out that we are recording this webinar, and while everyone will be on mute, there will be time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. So you can type your questions into the question box. We'll try to answer as many of those as time allows. Additionally, the slides that are part of this webinar will be available to you on the GeoNet group, the Departments of Transportation, and we will post this webinar on our website within the next couple of days for others who may not have been able to attend today. So to start off, for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of a system of engagement and the way that we use the term for highway agencies here at Esri, let me give you a quick and very high-level overview. And you can find a variety of resources at the link listed on this page, and we'll give you links to a variety of other resources at the end of the webinar. But at heart, a system of engagement is really a new way of thinking about how we implement technology in large organizations, and ultimately how we empower everyone in a DOT with the data, the maps, and the applications they need to do their daily job much more effectively. And the concept really comes out of two major trends within the IT industry. The first has to do with the way in which technology projects were implemented 5-10 years ago. These were often one-off, very large custom implementations that took several years between concept and delivery, and quite often did not really meet the needs of the agency by the time they were finally delivered. So as a result, many in the industry began to look at more agile development methods that could deliver value much faster and with significantly less cost. Then secondly, many agencies begin to look to technology as a way of doing more with less, often referred to under the guise of digital transformation. Many agencies came to see technology as the only way they could meet their goals and their objectives in the context of declining budgets. So we began to look at how to make everyone more productive and how we could move from manual to digital processes. So the first key statement to make about a system of engagement is that it's designed to empower everyone within an organization with the information and the applications they need to be more effective in their daily tasks. So we start with the first key requirement, how to make the appropriate data available to everyone in the organization. There should ultimately be a single location for everyone with the appropriate permissions to easily access the data that they need. And many of you on the line already know, many DOTs have already created effective data portals, so many of you have already taken this concept to heart. And secondly, you should leverage your existing technology as much as possible. You already have a great deal of data and information in your organizations. The trouble is, it's often siloed and not accessible to everyone who needs it. So as we all know, everyone has their own little data cache and spreadsheets and other databases. They're not really accessible across your organization. They're segregated by office and by division. You really can't bring data together from across your organization to make better and more timely decisions. So the second step is through APIs, accessing information from these various silos. The third key requirement is to focus on the users and to understand their very specific requirements. And oftentimes, these really are not extremely complex, but rather they need to support things like daily inspections, daily work orders, very specific daily activities. This is really the heart of a system of engagement, the targeted information products that are designed to provide the data, the maps, and the apps to individual business units, allowing them to collaborate and bring the right information to their analyses and to their work. And the key is that they're designed around the needs of very specific users. And these are often quick and fairly simple to develop. And fourth is the notion that you should use off-the-shelf technology and configure rather than customize your applications as much as possible. And this is designed to get away from the days of those large custom solutions, which are expensive to maintain over time. And rather, as much as you can, you should configure off-the-shelf technology to meet your needs. This really pushes the requirement to maintain interoperability of the various technology components off to your vendors and not to your IT department. And this leads to the final point, that ultimately what you're creating is a sustainable technology environment. Not only is it much easier to maintain, but ultimately the goal is to transition to an environment of continuous innovation. As applications outlive their utility, they are simple to replace and with the next iteration. All right, so let's see how these concepts translate to a DOT context. So to start it off, Stacia, over to you.
Great, thanks, Terry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stacia Taggart. As Terry said, I'm in the Transportation Services Division, and I work pretty much primarily with System of Engagement customers. We've done the initial discovery components of an SOE at probably 8 or 9 DOTs, but we have 5 projects that we're working on right now. And so I've gathered some of the folks from Esri that are supporting those teams, and they have been building some really amazing apps at those DOTs. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand it off to them right away and let them start showing you what they've done. We'll start with Louisiana DOT and Matt Urbis.
Hey everybody, my name's Matt Urbis, as Stacia said. I'm in Esri's professional services division as well, out of the St. Louis office. And I've been working with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development on their SOE project for almost a year and a half now. And what you're seeing right now is our main landing page application. And this is kind of the main spot for the SOE, where anytime we finish an application and have it ready to launch and for people to start using, it ends up here on this main SOE landing page with its own little tile for people to view the application and do some training. So I'm going to walk you guys through this application today and the help support ticket system that we have hooked up to it. So as you can see, this is a very Louisiana branded landing page. We've got some pictures here of Louisiana. We've got DOTD branding and colors and everything. And when the user first accesses this website for the first time, we think some people might have some questions about what an SOE is. So we have a little video tutorial here at the top of the screen where people can view a video about the SOE, and they can get some more information about what it might mean for them and their daily roles. So going back to the main page here, we have different categories of the apps as defined by Louisiana DOTD. So each app is organized into one of these categories, and you can expand those categories out to see a larger list of the ones that we have. So if we're here for field mobility, we have several different applications for the environmental group at DOTD, but we also have some other mobile applications that people from other groups are using as well. You can see Public Works has a few in here, the ports inspection team, so on and so forth. So if I wanted to actually go here and view an application, I can do that easily. Just click the view button, and that initiates the actual app. And this is Louisiana's open data portal that the GIS team maintains. Or if I'm a little bit confused about how to use that app, maybe, we also have a training button here. And this launches training and a user guide that goes along with that application. So I can take a look through here, scroll through, maybe find out how to do the exact thing that I'm trying to do in the application. You'll notice that some of these apps have a little padlock icon on their thumbnails. Those are applications that are locked down to specific groups. So some of these applications for the environmental group are only accessible to those people as defined by the environmental group because we have some sensitive data in those applications. So we do enforce group sharing through the landing page as well. And the next thing I wanted to show you, if somebody comes here and they have some question about the SOE in general, or maybe they ran into an issue on one of the apps and they aren't really sure how to proceed and they have a question, we do have this help button here. If I click on that, that launches a help ticket submission form using our Survey 123 technology that people can fill out and say, hey, I have a question about one of these apps. Maybe they're unable to access it, but they think they should be able to. Maybe they have a question about the data or just some general feedback. They can do that, fill that out here. And they can provide their name and email and phone number so that we know how to get a hold of them, and attach a screenshot if they found something in the application that they think is wrong and they want to show a picture of that, they can do that if applicable. And they can click submit, and that will send a new ticket into the SOE support system. I'm not going to do that right now because this is hooked up live and we have people at Louisiana DOTD who would get that email and would be springing into action. But after somebody submits this, it does send an email to people at DOTD who are receiving these and fielding these questions that come in. And they can interact with those in a few different ways. So we've got a few different dashboard views here I'd like to show you guys. So this first one is just a general status dashboard showing the number of tickets that are out there, both open and closed. And you can see here we have them symbolized based on different chili peppers, based on the current status. This is a very Louisiana dashboard. So we have green peppers for new tickets that just came in, yellow peppers for some that have been there a little while, red peppers for those that have been open a while, and then flaming hot peppers for those that have been open too long and we need to get in action on getting those resolved. And then once they are resolved, they show up as a glass of milk. So this dashboard is one that gets sent out also to the person who submits the ticket, and it will be filtered for them to just the tickets that they submitted. But for the SOE support staff, they get a view of all of the tickets here, and they have some filters available if they want to look at the specific emails for different users, or if they want to filter by a date range. Similar dashboard here, they can look at the comparison of open tickets and tickets that have been escalated. So we allow SOE support members to escalate a ticket if possible, or if necessary. Maybe somebody has a very specific question about data that's in an application, and maybe the person fielding this initial request on the support team doesn't know the answer to the question. They can escalate that up to someone else, maybe a subject matter expert who can maybe address the question more easily. Something that's more specific to their division's data or something like that. And then we have this help ticket metrics dashboard, so we can keep track of our metrics about the different tickets that are coming in. So we sort them out here in this pie chart by the application for which a ticket was submitted. We can see who's been closing the most tickets. and then just obviously the status of how many tickets we've received versus how many have been closed. And then we can scroll through our list of closed tickets here if we want to see a history. And then finally, we have an additional form that gets sent out to users after a ticket has been closed, asking for their feedback on the actual support that they received from somebody at DOTD. So then they can give us a score on how well they think we did in terms of being responsive, getting a good question or a good answer to their question, and they can give a satisfaction score. As you can see here with these indicators on the top, we've gotten one response that was very satisfied and one that was satisfied. And we can see where those tickets are coming from, which district the user was in, and which application they had a question about. So that is the help ticket support system in a nutshell for Louisiana DOTD. And I will hand it back off to Stacia.
Thank you, Matt. That's great. One of the things that's awesome about this is this was all done with Esri COTS technology, off-the-shelf technology, and was done because the DOTD did not have their own support ticketing system, so they needed us to put one together. We can, of course, use an existing support system if that is the requirement by the customer. So next, we're going to show another one, or one of the apps that we've actually built for Louisiana DOTD, and that's going to be done by Marcus Infante.
Great, thank you, Stacia. Let me see here, make sure I get the right screen up. Yep, perfect. Thank you. Yes, so tough act to follow, but Matt Urbis did a great job of summarizing a lot of the work that we've done for Louisiana DOTD. The app that I will be showing you today is what we're working on for them for their road closure submissions. So with this app, the current workflow when we went in to do our discovery was that they have an internal system in which they report their road closures, and then that information gets passed to the traffic management centers and to also anybody that subscribes to the affected areas to notify them of road closures, and then that information gets placed into their 511 system. And at the moment, it's not map centric. So the location of those road closures just has to be described via text, and then it has to be verified by the traffic management center operator. So we thought this was a prime opportunity to get a map involved and get that information spatially located. So that's exactly what we set out to do with this application. It is a version of a web app builder with a couple other things built into it, which I'd love to show you. So the benefit of this is, one, to help them verify the road closure quicker, and also to help standardize the information, because once this gets submitted, all this information gets processed and placed into an email, which is then sent out to the appropriate parties. And it keeps those from reporting that are in the districts from having to remember all of the necessary information. When you input it through this app, you're going to get the same data integrity, or the same fields filled out every time. So when you open this app, this is still in dev. The application itself is mostly finished. We are working on finishing integrating this into their system. So we're pretty close to finished with it. But as you can see here, there's just a map with their roads and highways on it. And then on the right is just a simple form that we're going to fill out. And there's some logic built into it that I'll show you as I go through these fields. So you just to begin, you can have a start and end point. You can hold the control button to snap somewhere along that roads and highways line. Also, there's a built-in tolerance, so if you don't snap to it and you just place a point down, it'll search for the closest thing within, I think, 5 meters, 10 meters. But what we did to help the user is give them this route selector so that they can specify. So in areas of high density roads like this in New Orleans, I can specify whether I'm trying to close Louisiana 611 or I-10 going north and south. So I will just move over a little bit. I'll clear these points and I'll just do a quick one over here. So if I put a start point there and an end point over here, Avenue C is the only one available because that's what I've picked. We've built some logic into this. So if I'm closing for a specific type of closure, roadwork is the most common, so that's our default, but you can see there's some different types of closures here as well. So if I open this up, you can see all these different types of roadwork that we've built in. If I change it to weather, it changes that list for me. And all this information was received from the operations division on what they'd like to have included. I can include the dates of the closure, so I'll just leave those in there for an example. Just some other things. I don't have to go through every one of these, but the cross streets are important as well. So that tells you where you're going to close the road so that there's a detour made. Unfortunately, there's unnamed road, but I can type in what I want. So if I want Central Avenue, I can put that in there as well as mileposts. Just fill out some quick tests. And then this is automatically populated with the user. So who you would contact or who was the person to edit it. Also, you can change this if you would like somebody else to be responsible for it. And then down here, I can notify specific parishes or the corridors. So these are people that have subscribed to things in their area that they want to know are affected. What we're going to do is eventually push all of these that get selected into their MyDOTD system. So then the emails will automatically be sent out to those subscriber lists. I can hit submit real quick. It should take a few seconds to process. It's not too bad. And on the back end here is going through and using FME to kind of pull that information from the roads and highways network and figure out where it's at. Unfortunately, that one didn't go through. I just did one of these, so I apologize, but let's see here. When it does go through, you just get a quick closure that looks like this. Then we also have some editing tools built in. So if I'd like to reopen that, I can click on it from this editor. This is all that information, all the attributes are here. So you can see the route ID got pulled from their roads and highways, LRS system. If I want to change this back to an open closure, I can save that. And then if I hit clear, it changes the symbology to green. So we've built in some symbology with that as well. The email that comes through, I've got one of those pulled up. So what we try to do is build a template that looks very similar to the one that's already received so that the end user won't tell much difference in this workflow. We try to really only affect the upfront people that are submitting and not really changing their workflow too much, but this looks almost identical to the email that they receive currently. You can see that most of the information comes under closure details. All that stuff's getting populated just from those fields that were filled out and inserting that information into a sentence, as well as some of the contact information. Also, I can click on this. This one is for external users. So if I click on it, it just brings me to another web app to show me the location of it if I want to pan around and see maybe how I can get around these things. The internal users within MyDOTD will receive a link that actually takes them to a different web application where they can edit these things and update them. In the long run, we plan on going into phase 2 and having this information mapped out, field mapped to push straight into their 511 system. So our current workflows are just to include map-centric reporting and making sure the information still gets disseminated to the appropriate parties. But eventually we'd like to skip over the approval process and push it straight into 511 so that traffic management centers don't have to do that, and we can open up some of their time. So that is our efforts on the road closure submission application. And with that, I'll hand it back off to Stacia. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marcus.
Yep, I apologize for that one not going through, but
that's okay.
Live
demos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great example of, several apps put together into a larger workflow, and each of those apps helping different audience members, different stakeholders in that workflow, very specific to what they need to do, or in some cases, only what they should be allowed to do. So thank you for that. We're going to pivot now and look at a couple apps from New York State DOT's SOE. That'll be their landing page and a permits viewer. So I'm going to hand it over to Peyton.
Thanks, Stacia. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so if you can see my screen, you'll see the NISDOT landing page. This is similar to Louisiana's landing page, built on enterprise sites, but very much branded for NISDOT. We have a what's new section that introduces new applications or just what's new within the DOT. We have a highlighted apps section, which we use to highlight our newest app that's been moved into production. And then we have a basic gallery of the maps and apps that have been created through their SOE. For each of these applications, you can click to see more info, or you can open the app directly from this page. If you were to click see info, you would see an info page for the specific application. This is showing a blurb, so just a short introduction to the application. You can then access the application, or you can view a user guide, data details, or some help documentation. So today, I'm going to show our sign permits dashboard. This dashboard was created for New York State DOT and designed to allow users to see the locations of 3 types of sign permits. This is the first time that they're able to see these locations, and they're also seeing them alongside graphs and indicators and details. So prior to this application, NISDOT permit staff had to actually request an export of the desired sign permit data. So for example, they would request all of the permits for a specific location that were a specific type of sign permit. That export was then provided in a spreadsheet format. The spreadsheet had to be reconfigured, and that finally provided an easily readable list of sign permit details. So now with this dashboard, the same users who were submitting requests and reconfiguring spreadsheets are able to open this application, filter by location and permit attributes to quickly see and understand the distribution of sign permits. So when the dashboard initially loads, it shows information for the entire state of New York. But then internal users from the right-of-way group are able to drill into the data to better understand the distribution of permit types within a specific region or county. So first, we're going to take a look at the specific components of the dashboard before we go through a typical workflow. So in the header here, users are able to filter the map and graph by permit type. So they can choose a sign type of logo, registered, or TOD. They can also filter by region, specific type or status of permits, and or county. So when they filter this, it changes all the maps and graphs on the dashboard. And then in the main body of the dashboard, you'll see permits symbolized by type, indicators counting the specific number of each type of permit for the entire state. And then you have two graphs. One is showing the distribution of permits by type and region, and the other is showing the distribution of permits by county and type. Lastly, we have two list elements which help them identify and understand individual permits after they've filtered by type and region at the top. So now let's see how these elements all work together to quickly provide staff with the desired sign permit information. So let's say I work in Region 4, Rochester, and I'm only concerned about the sign permits in my region. So I'm able to use the filter by region dropdown to select Region 4, Rochester. I can then move the map to that region, and notice how the counts at the bottom in the graph have changed to display information only about this region. So now I can use the county graph to understand the distribution of the different types of permits per county within this specific region. So now I can use the filter by permit type to look at only the registered permits. So still within Rochester, but only registered permits. Notice how this list is now blank. We're showing a list for each type of permit. So if I click registered, it will show details again. And now I can finally use these graphs on the side here to learn more about these permits. So let's filter one level deeper to Livingston County. Notice how my count has gone down and my map is filtered. And now we can select a specific permit for a sign from this list. And when we do so, it zooms to on the map and the information is displayed below. So we're able to see the content of the sign, the highway type, different fee charges for that sign, and any comments or classifications. So clicking that again zooms back out. We're able to unfilter this information. And now I was able to view information about a specific permit very quickly without requesting or reconfiguring any spreadsheets. Some future workflows for this application are to create a permit editing system. So we're able to update and change any information regarding to the permit details. They're also interested in creating public applications, and they do have a couple of other applications relating to this data that I did not share today. And with that, this one was kind of quick because it's just one application, so I'll hand it back to Stacia.
Thank you, Peyton. No, I think that's great. It shows, the iterative nature of the work that we do on the SOEs. We're able to get value out of this system or out of this particular app, and we don't have to wait for all of those other apps to be created in order to get some value early. So thank you for that. That looks great. We're going to shift again. Now we're going to go to our Colorado DOT SOE team and have you take a look at their landing page and some pretty cool apps we've got going on there. So we're going to start with Cameron Amrod.
Thank you, Stacia. Yeah, my name is Cameron Amrod, and I'm a platform engineer in the Denver office, and I've been working on the CDOT SOE for about 2 years now. Just a little bit of background on the app I'm going to show you. It's called the Traffic Operations Dashboard, and it was made for CDOT's Traffic Management Center. And their goal is to ensure safe and efficient travel throughout all the state-maintained roads in Colorado. And day-to-day, generally what they do is exactly what it sounds like. They identify and mitigate any congestion or hazards that could be on the roads to make sure that people can travel around safely. And some of these issues that they deal with could be anywhere from just your typical rush hour commute, any accidents, weather hazards, construction zones. things of those sort. So to do these kind of tasks, what they need is generally several different data sources that could be on, several different platforms. They may need several different monitors at the same time to analyze all this information. And that's great, but a lot of times quick action is needed to help mitigate any type of congestion or issues on the roadways. So typically what they'll have to look at is like traffic flow information, some of their internal weather monitoring, closed circuit TV cameras, digital message signs. So our goal for this app was to kind of tie all this in together in just a one place that they could go view and analyze all the data and make respond quickly to any events that could be occurring. So initially when users access this, they access the landing page, which you're seeing. And on here, we have some links to some internal resources they may need. And in addition, if they need to download any data directly, they can choose their category. So if I need county boundaries or something like that, you can go in there and grab the data that you might need. And then in addition, it's the launch point to all the apps that we're creating for the SOE. So for this, we're going to go to the traffic operations dashboard. And if I open that, I get taken to a landing page for the dashboard. And in here, there's some general information. If you want to watch a short tutorial video, you can do that. Start guide, help documentation. And much like Louisiana is doing, we have a feedback survey. So if you have any helpful feedback on the dashboard or anything you might want to see differently, they can go in there and submit a survey 123 record that we can get and make any changes that might be needed. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and launch the dashboard. And I think we're just going to run through a couple of scenarios on how this might be used. One common one is investigating an accident that may have happened. So maybe someone radioed in and said there's something going on. Let's say I-70 is pretty popular for accidents. So we'll do I-70 and maybe mile marker 281. So I might know the general area of that, which is on the north side of town. And what I can actually do is zoom in, and I should have some mile markers that will pop up so I can figure out where I'm going. Which should be right in front of me. All right, so I can see I'm at mile marker 281. Just going to zoom out a little bit here. And you'll see that all the roads are color coded, and that is by traffic flow. So green means that traffic is generally flowing pretty well, and red is obviously going to be congestion or a slowdown. So I don't currently see anything that might be causing a problem. I can see that my a video popped up in my corner, which is going to be the closest camera to this center that I'm looking at. So it's going to be right along here on I-70. I can also analyze any Waze alerts. So these are all coming in through real time. So as soon as an alert is submitted on the app, it'll show up in here. So it looks like there's someone reported some road construction. If there's anything else going on, I can kind of see a trend line throughout the day on if more events were occurring during a certain amount of time. I can also see what kind of alerts are coming in. So this one is just a road hazard. And if there's any additional details. So this one is just there's road construction, which is definitely what's going on right here. So in addition, if I want to, I can view some still cameras, just analyze if anything's going on. And I can also view all the digital message signs. So maybe if there is an accident here, I need to go in here and now change it saying, letting motorists know there's an accident going on and they might need to take additional cautions going through the area. And some other things that are in here, let's say there might be some construction going on, which is reported in Waze. So I can see that on here. We have some sort of road work for I-70. And there's actually quite a bit going on. This whole area is under construction, so there's quite a bit. And then in addition to this, the traffic service that we're using that are highlighting all the roads, we can see some additional construction comments in there. And if there are any road delays, those are also reported in here. And all this data is real time, so as soon as something happens, it'll pop up on here. So it will give the operator some real great situational awareness. And then one other feature of this, I'm going to zoom back out. So we have traffic, but weather is also a concern here, especially here in Denver. Once you get west of the city in the mountains, it can get pretty extreme. So I'm going to flip over to my weather tab. Just going to zoom out real quick and get an idea of what's going on in the state. Let's say we do have a winter storm coming in. So I just want to make sure that I'm aware of what's going on right now. So you see the pink polygons pop up. So I can go over here on my left side and see what weather watches are going on. So there's some fire watches on the east side of the state, and these are red flag warnings. So if I want more additional information, I can click on the link and it will send me to the Weather Services web page where I can learn some more information about it. I also have radar in here so I can see if it's snowing anywhere. It looks like it is snowing a little bit over the mountains. And if I do need to prepare a little further, I have some forecast data in here as well. So I can pop this open. Right now it's just showing wind speeds, but if I want to see how much snowfall there's going to be, so I can prepare for that, I can turn that layer on as well. So let's say that this is actually occurring now. So what I'm going to do is zoom into an area that's generally a trouble spot, which is up by the Eisenhower Tunnel, which is the highest part of the interstate system here. So it's usually, we can get pretty snowy. So I have my webcam show up so I can see it does look kind of wet on the roads. And this segment road here is actually Loveland Pass, which is a major corridor for freight and shipping that can't go through the tunnel. So it's important to keep it clear. So I can go in here and see what the current conditions are. So it's being reported as icy. And if I wanted to confirm that, simply pick another camera. And it looks like we got a bunch of skiers out here today. All the ski resorts are closed, so makes sense. And also get a nice snapshot of what the pavement looks like. In addition to this, I have all my different weather stations here. So it looks like, and they're pointing like they would, like you typically see on a weather map. So it looks like the wind's a little bit out of the south. Get some quick information. So it's 25 degrees, pavement temperature, the friction coefficient, and precip has been recorded for the past, it goes up to 24 hours, but for here it's reporting for 12 hours. So let's go back to this camera. Let's say these are snow covered and I need to make sure that I have a plow nearby that can go and plow this for me. All I have to do is look on here for a plow, which is actually right in front of me. It's the red circle with an arrow. So I can just make sure it's active, where it's going, and I have my information with the fleet name to make sure I can contact that snowplow and provide any assistance that may be needed. And then in addition to this, if I am looking out for any areas that might be troublesome, I'm filtering out all of the weather observations and looking for just certain criteria that might be important. So for this one, it's snowy and the roadway conditions are wet. And it looks like the friction number might be lowering a little bit. So that might mean that I need to take some action there. And that is the traffic operations dashboard. I'll hand it back to you, Stacia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cameron. This is an app that is currently in production with CDOT, correct?
Yes.
Great. That is awesome. Yeah, accessing a lot of real-time feeds from CDOT's current systems. So there's obviously a lot going on in that dashboard. You did a great job of kind of breaking it down for us. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, now we're on to our last demo, and that's going to be done by Julia Lieberman, showing us a little bit about freight and trucking.
Thank you, Stacia. I'm not sure if I'm sharing my right screen.
Yep, it's the right one.
That's the right one? All right. So my name is Julia Levermann. I'm supporting CDOT, or I have been supporting CDOT for the past 2 years as a configuration specialist. And I'm going to demo the freight and trucking restrictions application. Before I dive into the actual application, I wanted to give a little bit of context on the use case and business value of this application. So the freight and trucking industry is a vital component of Colorado's economy, and last year CDOT's Oversized and Overweight Permit Office was planning to create a new highway freight operations website. And the purpose of this website is to act as a landing page for the freight industry, partner agencies, internal operations, as well as the public. And CDOT asked Esri to configure a freight and trucking restrictions application through their existing SOE. And this freight and restrictions application is now one of the many applications that are available via this new website that CDOT provided. And the use case for this freight and trucking application is that dispatchers need to identify and visualize any travel restrictions so that they can create a safe and valid route for their drivers. So this information needs to be available 24/7. And some of the restrictions that a dispatcher would want to see in this application are, for example, bridge weight restrictions, vertical clearances, any oversize and overweight restrictions that exist, or any curfews, for example, so area curfews and LVC curfews and so on. So the business value of this application is really to provide authoritative and up-to-date information about any travel restrictions and make them available in one single tool, because until last year, a lot of times dispatchers would have to toggle between multiple applications, multiple PDF documents to really gather the information that they need in order to create these safe and valid routes for their drivers. And yeah, providing this ability to visualize these rules on a map is really reducing the time that dispatchers spend searching otherwise tabular data. And it also contributes to Colorado's economy because it's making it easier for truckers to operate within the state, and reduces the liability for CDOT because now they have one application that is providing all this authoritative, up-to-date information. So the product that we've been using for the freight and trucking application is an ArcGIS Hub site that has multiple associated pages for each restriction type. And then within these sites and pages, we've embedded dashboards using Operations Dashboard. And before I show you the actual application, I just wanted to give you one example how these maps used to look like before we worked on the freight and trucking application. So here you see an example of a height restriction map from 2000. It's displaying little dots visualized by the vertical clearance. So you can see it's pretty difficult to read this information. So a dispatcher would have to go in here, find the highway that their driver is going to use, then identify any structures that are located on the highway and find the vertical clearances and see if the driver can pass these bridges or not. So here is the freight and trucking website that Colorado put together last year. And in this website, you can access the different dashboards that we've configured. So if I scroll down here, you can see the different individual maps. So for example, OSOW restrictions, bridge weight limits, vertical clearances, and so on. But instead of diving into one of these individual maps, I'm going to take you to the freight and trucking app landing page. So very similar to the landing page that Cameron showed previously. So for all of the apps that we've configured, we configured a little landing page that is providing some context about the application. If you're new to the dashboard, there's a little quick start guide, just providing some context if you're using this application for the first time. If you have any questions or feedback, for example, enhancement requests, you can fill out the survey. And then at the top of the page, you can access the different pages. Each page has information for the different freight and trucking restrictions. So if I click on, for example, bridge weight limits, at the top of the page, I'm going to get information about that particular restriction. So in this case, bridge weight limits, explaining which structures are visualized in the dashboard. Then some brief instructions, how to, for example, turn layers on and off, how to switch the base map, and then letting the user know that the map extent is filtering the different dashboard elements. And then, of course, our dashboard for the bridge weight limits here. All dashboards have the same UI, UX, so the same layout, making it easier for the end user to really navigate through the different dashboards. At the top of the dashboard, we have filters related to that particular restriction. So in this case, for example, the bridge name, the weight limit color codes, the highway filter, and then you can refine your results using the milepost filter. Then obviously the map visualizing the different bridges by their weight limit color code. And then on the right-hand side, a list element showing the details for each particular bridge. Since I previously showed you an example of height restrictions, I want to use the vertical clearances page for my demo. So I'm switching over to my vertical clearances. Again, at the beginning of the page, just some context about the particular restriction type, in this case showing the different categories for my vertical clearances, some instructions on how to use the dashboard, and then my actual dashboard. So similar to the bridge weight limits dashboard we just looked at, we have filters for that particular restriction. Again, in this case, bridge name, highway filter, milepost, and for vertical clearances, we have a filter for the vehicle height. So I can enter the height in inches, and this would then filter my dashboard to only show bridges that I cannot pass. So let's say I'm a dispatcher. I need to plan a route for my driver who is coming in from Utah. I know that he's going to be taking the I-70, but I'm fairly new to CDOT, so I don't know which bridges are located along I-70. So now I need to find out which bridges he cannot pass because his vehicle is too tall. So since I don't know the bridges yet, I can only filter by highway. I'm going to filter by I-70. It flashes the I-70 on the map and now filters my map element and list element here on the right-hand side to only display any structures that are located on I-70. And in addition, I know that my driver's vehicle is 190 inches, just a random number. So I'm going to add that in the dashboard as well. So now I can see it's only filtering the bridges that are too low for my driver to pass. So now instead of having to scroll through that PDF and manually find all the bridges that are located along I-70 that my driver has to avoid, I have everything sitting in the dashboard right here. I know that he is coming in from Utah, so the first bridge would be the one here in Grand Junction. So I'm going to zoom in on that feature. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further. So you see what I mentioned earlier, that my map extend is filtering the elements in the dashboard. So now my list element here on the right-hand side is only displaying that one particular bridge. I have information on the minimum and maximum clearance in feet as well as in inches. And now if I switch over to the tab here on the bottom, bridge photos, I also see an image or multiple images for that particular bridge to get a better idea how the bridge looks like. So now just like that, it makes it really easy for the dispatcher to plan a safe and valid route for my driver that is coming in from Utah without having to toggle between multiple applications. I can identify bridges that are too low for him and plan a valid route based on that information. And then let's say, for example, I have another driver who has some hazardous load that needs to be transported. So I would jump over to my hazardous and nuclear routes. Again, displays some information about that particular restriction, instructions on how to use the application, and then my dashboard for hazardous and nuclear route restrictions. I can filter by highway or route designation and find out if there are any valid restrictions on that particular highway. And that is everything I wanted to show for the freight and trucking application. So passing it back to you, Stacia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julia. That is awesome. Looks really good. So that's a good sampling of the different apps that we're configuring at 3 of our different SOE customers. And Terry, I think I'm going to hand it back over to you for any questions.
Okay, thanks. That was a great job, guys. We really appreciate that. And so we'll open it up for questions. We've already received some questions. Again, I want to re-emphasize this webinar will be available within the next 2 or 3 days. We'll post it up on the Esri Roads and Highways website, on our webinar series website. You'll be able to access it. You'll also be able to access any of the slides that we showed today. And again, here are some other resources. So we do have a landing page. There's an ebook that I would encourage you to take a look at that really gives a sort of a high-level overview. We do have several articles. There's one on the Colorado DOT's System of Engagement, as well as a webinar. So let's go ahead and let's open it up for questions. And as I mentioned, we already have a number of questions that have come in. So let's see. The first question really had to do, I think it was during the Louisiana DOT presentation and the portals. The question was, these portals are available for the DOT employees and the support staff only. And Stacia, maybe you want to explain that, in fact, those are really configurable and you can make some open to the public, some only, and I'll let you take that one if you would.
Well, I think you got the answer there, Terry. That's absolutely right. You know, it can be a portal page that is just internal, or it can be both internal and external. We also have customers that have said we want to have a different one for the public than we have for internal. But maybe I'll let Matthew or Matt maybe kind of explain how Louisiana was using theirs.
Yeah, so that first dashboard I showed that showed the list of tickets, that was actually doing some dynamic filtering where an admin user, so a support ticket team member, could come in and see all of the tickets, but for someone who was a member of Louisiana DOTD and had a DOTD email and submitted their ticket, when they would access the dashboard, they would see just the tickets that they submitted. So it was kind of doing some filtering at the data level, and so we had two dashboards, each one with the filtered data, but each one was exactly the same in look and feel other than the data that shows up in it.
And Matt's Louisiana's landing page, is that public or is that internal?
It is public, yep.
It is public, okay.
Okay, and a number of state DOTs actually do make parts of their landing page public, and then other parts are not, are only accessible to internal staff. There was another question actually about the icons that were used for the support tickets, and the question was, and I'm sure it's sort of, that those icons are can be defined and can be changed based on the individual agency, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, and not everybody wants to have chili peppers.
Chili peppers.
Louisiana specialty. So there is another question, and I think it's partially answered, but somebody wanted to know if we actually have any apps for either traffic signals or for an ATMS system. So have any of the state DOTs identified those beyond what we saw with the Colorado DOT traffic management application?
I think what we have today is as far as we've gotten, we do have planned apps where we'll be getting doing more integration with those systems.
Okay, and so there was another question, and this was really on the road closure application, again in the Louisiana context, and the question was that app built using the event editor, or was that the roads and highways editor?
Actually, it's neither. We do a lot of that processing on the back end with an FME workbench. We're not actually editing anything. We're just creating new features into a feature class. So all that information gets compiled through those inputs on the back end by a workbench, and it pushes that into the attribute table.
And it was a web app builder app, right?
This is web app builder, yeah. And there was, I know we talked about trying to stay as COTS as possible. We did have to get into a little bit of customization with this just to make sure that we were providing the correct information that they would like, and that could be pushed into that email for the end user.
Okay, and I think there was another question sort of, again, to the road closure. Is that integrated with any other applications such as web EOC or other applications that might be used in the operations center?
Not at the moment, but the plan is to integrate into their 511 system in the operations center so we can push the stuff straight into it.
Okay, and let's see, another question. Any plans on the to the Colorado DOT to the truck restriction? Any movement to actually do the routing of the vehicles rather than just the visual screening?
Yes, that would be one of the next steps in the next version, that the user could actually plan their route in the same application and not just see the existing restrictions.
Okay. And let's see, there's someone asked, they're actually in the process of moving their Oracle database to GIS, and they wanted to know about contacts. So I'll tell you what, Christopher, we'll actually send you a technical resource that you can talk to and answer any questions that you might have on that. And other questions, and we are kind of coming to the end of our time here, so we'll see if there's just one more question, and looks like we've actually run out of time. So again, we do want to thank everyone for being on the webinar today. We realize these are challenging times, and hopefully your own home Wi-Fi internet was fast enough. We're all testing our home Wi-Fis these days. So again, we do want to thank you. This webinar will be made available within the next several days. So again, thank you, and we look forward to having you on future webinars. So with that, we'll close. Again, thanks so much.